again, this is not scientific, but I kind of was thinking of, I see sort of 5 different levels of interest from senior leaders in organizations about MEL. There are, worst cases, there's active disinterest. And by that, I mean, sometimes I have to say sometimes in the very small organizations, a sense from leaders, why on earth are you asking me to spend money and time on M&E? Of course we're doing well. It's not that they think M&E per se is a bad thing. It's like, why would I devote resources to that? We're doing a good job. It's patently obvious. If you ask me to spend time on M&E, I'm taking resources away from doing more good stuff. And that's just I think that's an increasingly dated view, and it is going out of practice, let alone fashion. But I still see it sometimes in organizations. And obviously trying to do M&E in that context is nigh on impossible. The next level, I would say, which is still not great, it's better, but an interest only in being told about kind of short-term, measurable results that can be attributed to your project or your intervention. You see that sometimes in certain donors, but also organizations, particularly where the CEO wants your monitoring data just for stuff to put in communications or the annual report or fundraising about how many people you've reached or how much you've done or how big things have been and how you have made a big difference. I'll come back to this one in a second, but the next level up I put was delegated interest, where you've got to recognize a CEO can't be totally committed to and totally engaged with every aspect of their organization, particularly in bigger organizations. There's only so much headspace you have and time you have. So if you are not personally somebody who's really engaged in M&D, you may say, I'm happy for this to happen, but I'm going to delegate that. I'm going to leave it to somebody else in the organization to look after that. And if that's left, that's the kind of situation where it can be, I'll leave it to the M&E people. You just get on and do it, and meanwhile I'll get on with other stuff. And that's not bad necessarily, but it can mean that you've got great scope to go and do good work and engage people. But that's also sending a slight cue, as per the previous slide, about, yeah, not so interested in this, not really valued. You may struggle to engage other people in the organization if the CEO has that sort of level of interest. I see quite a few CEOs who are like, okay, I get it. I understand that this is important. I really see why it's valuable, but I don't know what I should be doing. I don't know tell me what we need to do in our organization. I think that's good, because that's the key thing, is the right attitude. You can do something with that. You can work with that sort of leader. So has potential. And the best one is a CEO who is genuinely committed to saying, right, tell me what's going on in the programs, tell me what you found in your M&E, and let's discuss how we can improve and do better. And it is amazing the sort of the cultural transformation that can bring about in an organization when you see leaders like that. Now, I have to, when I was putting this slide together, I think I started off putting this about fourth, and then gradually relegated it, thinking, I don't think that's a good thing, being interested in short-term results. Why am I so harsh about that? I think I don't know how much of this has been covered in the course, but there really is a danger over the last few years of focusing down into very narrow, okay, tell me what you've achieved, what changes happened in the lifetime of this project over the last year, 3 years, whatever. That's not what matters often. If you're most of the projects we deal with, okay, if you're dealing with changing the level of acute malnutrition or vaccinations, things that lead to quick changes, fine, fair enough, that's okay. But you're dealing with climate change, women's empowerment, prevention of sexual violence or something. These are things which are about deep social norms, they're in complex environments. You don't bring about change really quickly. So you need to be looking at sort of longer term things. You need to be open to unpredictable or unpredicted results as well. So if you just focus on a narrow range of indicators, in your log frame, and indeed at the organizational level. Another thing that I'm not keen on is when an organization decides that these are the 5 key indicators across 50 countries that really matter to us. And you're just, oh, that's dangerous as well, because I've seen that done in organizations where it then leads to the tail wagging the dog. People develop projects to fit the indicators, which is the absolute reverse of what's supposed to happen. That short-term focus also tends to be about reporting up to donors. It tends to be about reporting to maybe communications type stuff. It's not about understanding complexity and understanding the reality for the people on the ground whose lives you're trying to make a difference to. So yeah, that's. People are free to disagree with me as to where you would put that in the if the CEO is particularly interested in that. Is that something you can build on? I still think it's a risky route to go down. So what does good leadership on monitoring, evaluation and learning look like? There was a great blog post from Rob Lloyd in ITAD just last month, a couple of months ago, which kind of I just read it and thought, yes, that captures what I was thinking on this. How can you tell in an organization if you've got a good leader? What does it look like within an organization if you've got a leader who really values M&E? Well, they communicate the importance of results measurement, and they do that through things like saying, okay, show me the evaluation. They want to see the data themselves. They want it to be proved to them that something good has happened or not. They communicate the importance of MEL to other staff in the organization. They devote budget and staff time to making it happen. And they make it clear that they are using that data when they make future decisions. And I thought, well, that encapsulates it really neatly. Then a big question, I think, is, right, we kind of know what good leadership looks like. We can tell, you can pick off the characteristics of inspiring leaders. You also have a pretty clear idea of what bad leaders look like. And you can see, yeah, I'm not happy with that. There is a big question. Can you turn people who are not showing great leadership into people who show good leadership? So is it something that can be fostered or cultivated, or is it a sort of an intrinsic thing in people? And considering there's a training course being run on leadership next week, I trust that a lot of people think, yes, you can foster it to some extent and support it. And I think even though it can be very difficult, any of us working in international development are kind of committed to taking on things that are difficult. So there are some things I think that can be done. So before you kind of embark on thinking, right, how can I get my leader more engaged on MEL stuff? I think there's two key questions to consider. First of all is, do they believe that MEL can add value? And that's, there are some people, like I mentioned, the actively disinterested, who simply seem to think that, well, no, I know it already. I know what my project is like. This may be particularly the case in small NGOs. I visit the field, I talk to people, I know this stuff. I don't need to invest in much more than that. If that's the case, there's not an awful lot potentially you can do to change that side, except perhaps if you show evidence of where there has been some M&D and it has led to changes and you have changed things and done better as a result. You also need to ask, well, do they understand what's required to do good M&D? And that's often the sort of, do they understand quite how much budget may be required, quite how much time is required, how it may require a lot of other staff to engage with it and not just, I'll budget for an M&E officer and that's the job done. And some of the things that I've seen organizations do or that I've tried to do myself, which can help with some of this, is just simple things. Sharing information on the costs and benefits of MEL. And there's a paper at the back that you can pick up a summary of that we did about investing in monitoring, evaluation, and learning in organisations, and just giving a sense of, okay, budget required, share of budget that may be required. It goes beyond just collecting data, there's managing data, there's knowledge management systems and so on. But at least raising awareness of that. As I say, highlight examples of where learning has led to changes in programs and how that's made a difference. So just, sometimes just opening people's eyes to things that they didn't realise were going wrong. I think sometimes making a relationship with a CEO where you can approach them and tell them, give them feedback about their behaviour. Simply making them aware of the effects of their leadership style can suddenly turn a light on inside them. Somebody who is that delegated interest thing, the person who says, look, I'm just not an M&E person, you go off and do it. Simply saying, are you aware that you don't report anything on quality to the board? Are you aware that in this organisation we only ever celebrate fundraising successes and nobody ever celebrates evaluation? That can make a sort of okay, I understand now, I need to do more on that. You can try to insert more indicators on quality at sort of board level reporting. One that I did, I think, because sometimes quality and sort of program quality indicators are tricky. They are not, it's very hard to come up with an indicator that is as easily comprehensible as something like income or your brand profile or something like that. But one that I've tried is very sort of reasonably easy to measure, cheap to measure, was percentage of projects that the program officers self-assess as being on track to meet their objectives. And again, you can have a percentage and you can traffic light it, red, amber, green, and that sort of thing. It sounds flippant, but bring a number and a colour to something like quality, and suddenly leaders get it a bit more. And that's absolutely no reflection on the sort of the intellectual calibre of leaders. It is just a communication thing. Field visits. There was one CEO I engaged with. I always asked her, if you're going to the field and people are telling you, as they will, how brilliant your programs are and your interventions are, because that's what happens when a CEO of a major organisation goes to the field and talks with much less senior staff, ask them, okay, that's really good, I'm really pleased, but can I see your data that sort of backs it up, or the evaluation that shows that? Again, that's part of that, show that data matters, and show that it's not just all about anecdotes and kind of bluffing a bit. Celebrate evaluation results. Do pop a champagne cork when an evaluation shows that your organisation did bloody good work. Don't limit it to the sort of the more superficial and obvious things. And just making time for learning activities and budget time, or sort of plan in lunchtime talks to discuss evaluations or to reflect on a particular topic, or for people to feed back information that they've read. So, these are all small things, but hopefully collectively they can start to make some difference. I can't guarantee you that they will change the most difficult CEOs, but